Good afternoon, good afternoon. What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Aaron B, and I got my co-host Shane Carter in the building, or if you want to say in the car, wherever. But how's it going, bro?
Well, I couldn't make it last week, but I told you like whether I'm in the studio or outside the studio or whatever I got to do, I want to be able to make this show, and so I'm ready to talk some Cowboys because the football season is started.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, it sounds pretty good on you. It sounds like you're in the studio right now uh, in this
I,
episode. So.
I'm actually right outside the parking lot of the radio station. Um, I don't know if they're okay with me recording a podcast in there, but I want to be able to make showtime, so I'll just record outside the show and then get to work.
Oh yeah, hey, that's smart. Yeah, you got to do what you got to do. But
Mm-hmm.
before we get into the show, we got to show love to our first sponsor, and that's What a Clean Solution. Need to get your carpets clean, couches, tile, and grout, moving in or moving out. Need a place to you need your place to look brand new. Call What a Clean Solution, a family-owned mobile cleaning service that can clean anything from small carpet or even making your car or truck look brand new. Give them a call or a text at 210-790-1410 and using promo code TNT for 5% off your total cleaning. That promo code is T, the N sign and T, and hit them up at 210-790-1410 for 5% off. So, yes, sir. So, we actually had some preseason Cowboy football to talk about. So, our first subject is our impressions of the Cowboys versus Jags game. So, what are your thoughts on the game?
My thoughts were that were exactly what I expected. We knew that the key players weren't going to start. We wanted to see some certain positions. Like I want to see how the offensive line will look. I want to see how the linebackers looked. I want to see how the secondary looked. I want to see how the kicker looked, Brandon Aubrey. And he can make a field goal, but he misses extra point, and that feels like a common thing. He keeps missing those 33 yarders in practice, and that's concerning to me because here's the thing, I can forgive a missed field goal just because I don't know. It just feels more acceptable to miss a field goal than it does an extra point. He keeps missing those extra points. Like I need to see more out of him. But like really, while the offensive line was clearly the downside of the preseason game, there were a couple players I thought did really well. Asim Richards from North Carolina, the 5th round pick, I thought he did really well. He was actually the highest graded pass block according to Pro Football Focus. TJ Bass, one of my dark horses to make the team, the undrafted guard from Oregon. He's been getting some first team reps this week at left guard. I think they're still trying to find their interior depth. And I already know who you want to mention. I'm going to let you talk about him. But one more guy that I really wanted to highlight was DeMarvin Overshown, the Texas linebacker. Like aside from Damone Clark, he was the best defensive player we saw on the field for the Cowboys. He was the guy who and obviously the play everyone talks about is when he wrapped up Tank Bigsby, who's a really really thick runner.
Yeah.
Met him at the line of scrimmage on a 3rd-and-1 attempt, and he went nowhere. And that's not really DeMarvin Overshown's game. He's really much more of like a coverage guy, playing space kind of player, but who could stop the run, but wasn't always necessarily the greatest tackler when it came to like those really thick backs. But he did a really really nice job. And as camp's gone along, he's earned more and more playing time and more and more looks, especially with the first team. I think he might go from a guy who we think is going to be more of a special teams contributor year one to maybe even getting some actual game snaps on defense.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And staying on Overshown, do you remember that play when Trevor Lawrence threw it out to the tight end and
Yes,
he was literally like 2 feet away from it and covered
he was
and
right
got right
there.
there. It just
He's gonna be one of those tight end erasers that the Cowboys just have a lot of at this point.
hey, and there's nothing wrong with that because there's a lot of teams that utilize their tight ends. So now you got J-Ron and now you got Demar and Overshown. It's just like now you got options when it comes to that. So it's good to see that. And then speaking of Damone Clark, one thing I like about him is that his mental process. He's not
Yes,
overthinking now. His the confidence is there. He's
he
making
looks
those
like
big.
he looks like his LSU self.
Yeah, that's what you want to see is get into that LSU swag that he had. And then I think last year was just due to the fact that he had that injury, so getting that mental thing like, okay, I'm good. But now this is like his year where he can show what type of linebacker he can be.
He was
But
around the play, even if he wasn't the one making the play, and that's what you want to see from your Mike linebackers.
yeah, that's one of the things like you're saying that when you might you he may not get the play, but you want to see him right there in the trash pilers. That's
But we
what
all
he.
know who the star of the show was. We all know who the star of
Oh
the
yeah,
show was. Let me hear it.
yeah,
Come on.
yeah, and that is Deuce Vaughn. Deuce Vaughn showed out this week. Had averaged over 6.5 yards per carry, and he kind of showed some. He showed a shiftiness like what you were seeing in training camp, and overall, and that play where he was it Will Greer threw that ball, and it was like I don't know if it was higher just because Deuce is
He,
five
he
five,
threw
but
he
he
threw a
caught.
small little wheel route inside and
Yeah,
came in towards like a sort of a skinny post.
yeah,
And it's in the NFL you don't really overthrow receivers on little dump passes, but he's one of the few players in the NFL that you could overthrow a dump pass on.
yeah, that's true. And he caught it too and made that big play. It's like he was
He
making.
did. He's got bunnies.
Oh, he does. He's explosive and shit. He may not be the fastest guy, but with his footwork, man, he's gonna handle business on this team.
So much fun to watch.
Oh, he really is for sure.
It's going to be interesting to see like how they utilize him in the regular season, just because like we kind of expected Rico Dowdle and Malik Davis really compete for that running back two position, but I think we have to redefine what running back two means. And I used to think that it was the guy who was going to get a lot of those like extra carries inside
Yeah,
after your workhorse guy got. But now I'm trying to think my running back two needs to be the guy that I want the second most plays with. And Tony Pollard needs to be on the field the majority of all the running backs. But just based on what I've seen from camp and preseason so far, again, still early.
yeah,
I want Deuce Vaughn more than I want Dowdle or Davis or Jones, and Deuce Vaughn's not going to be a short yardage guy. You can use him so many different ways. It'd be almost malpractice not to keep him on the field as much as you can.
absolutely. It's kind of like you have two running backs that complement each other, not just having that guy that's gonna be a short yardage guy. Like that's what I see with Deuce Vaughn. And kind of speaking on Rico Dowd, he actually had a really a solid game. Yeah, I know our biggest worry is that he, after the torn ACL, he wouldn't have that explosiveness. But you seen in a few plays, he still had that explosion. I know he had that fumble, but
Mm-hmm.
overall, he had a good game for a guy that we thought, okay, maybe Malik Davis is the guy. But I'll speak about Malik Davis later. But one guy before I know we get to the next subject is, did you see John Stevens Jr.?
Oof, yes,
Man, John,
yes. I wasn't surprised because he's a converted wide receiver. But I mean,
yeah,
but one thing you also saw a defect in is he's still learning the position because
absolutely,
they tried using him as like the H back fullback position. You saw that in his first play out there. He didn't
hmm
look good. He got blown up.
yeah,
I think he's listed at 230, so he's still kind of light. But weight and strength aren't necessarily interchangeable. But he as a receiver was incredibly effective. He's kind of like a less developed version of what Peyton Hendershot was last year.
that's
It's
how I
gonna be, yeah, exactly. It's gonna be really hard for them to like. It was already gonna be hard for them to keep four tight ends because I feel like Sean McKeon's one of those like kind of bubble guys, just because those other three guys have a reason why they're on the team. And if McKeon can block well and he can play special teams, he didn't have the receiving pedigree that Stevens does. This is going to be a tough cut down for the tight end position, probably more so than the wide receiver position. Um, but I think I want to keep talking running backs. Any other running back news you want to talk about?
Oh, so speaking on that, we got some running back news. Uh, Former Dallas Cowboy and Dalvin Cook are now heading to the AFC North. So we got
East. They're in the
yeah,
AFC East.
East. I knew I messed up on that, but
It's
it's
okay.
all. Yeah, I was thinking. At least I got the AFC part right, but we're in the. They're both in the AFC East. But
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to Zeke, he signed a. Let me see. I got the numbers right here. Zeke signed a 1 year deal. It includes a $30 million base salary with a
Mm-hmm.
$1 million signing bonus, and
Yep.
worth up to $6 million in incentives. So, what
Mm-hmm.
do you think about him going to the Patriots?
I think it makes a lot of sense because Bill Belichick loves to utilize running backs for certain roles. The way we see the running back position nowadays, the Patriots started that where you have three or four guys doing three or four different things well. And something they didn't have well was a short yardage guy that they had in LeGarrette Blunt. They also didn't have a guy who could pass protect. With Zeke, you have a guy who could pass protect and still catch out the backfield if he wanted to, but he didn't have the same burst. That's going to go to Ramondre Stevenson. He's going to be that guy for you. And he could still be your short yardage guy because while we still get on to him, they didn't have the same burst he once did. He still averaged over 4 yards per carry. while it's still very minimalistic in the Patriots offense where they need that guy to go in between the guards, the 1 and 2 and 3 gaps. He makes sense for that kind of way. I still think Ramondre Stevenson deserves to be the number one running back, and if you saw him play last year, you understand why. He's one of the better running backs in the AFC. I like the fit. I really do like the fit with the Patriots for Zeke. I always thought Dalvin Cook was a long shot to the Cowboys anyway. I thought it would have been fun because I want the best players, but I always thought it was a long shot. And also, it feels like the Cowboys are kind of like treating the running back position kind of like how they treated the receiver position last year. They're gonna see what they got until it becomes an issue. The Cowboys had to wait for a while before they eventually got T.Y. Hilton. They were courting OBJ. I feel like they're going to do the same thing with the running back position. Players like Kareem Hunt and Leonard Fournette and guys like that are still on the street, so they have options. But I think the Zeke fit makes sense. The Cook thing, we both agreed was kind of a long shot, but would have been fun to see. But it also kind of highlights where the running back position is for other teams compared to the Cowboys. And it might be an issue we have to keep an eye on as the season goes along.
Absolutely. And then kind of going to Dalvin Cook, now you got him with Brees Hall, who's I know he's coming off an injury, but now you got a nice little backfield. And then they got Michael Carter from UNC? Was he from North Carolina?
Yeah, he is their Deuce Vaughn. He is their short yardage receiver, burst out the backfield kind of guy. The Jets, you could argue, had the best 1, 2, 3 punch at the running back position. Maybe in the NFL. I would have to take a look. I know there's other good teams with other good running backs, but I don't know if anyone's got as good a trio in the backfield as the Jets do, just on paper.
Yeah. It's like we want to see what they do week 1 and then so forth. But, yeah, it looks good on paper, but we definitely got to see what that happened. But I think our next one is we got Zack Martin back, and he got an $8.5 million raise. Mm-hmm. So – man, I heard people getting some raises, but that's a pretty good raise right there.
You know how frugal the Cowboys were last year? They've been blowing money this past couple months like it's the 90s. They've been throwing money around on their own players. They've been grabbing talent elsewhere. They're finally playing modern football. Modern football is you draft, you re-sign your own guys, you play free agency, and you hit the trade market. The Cowboys for a long time were like we're gonna draft and sign our own guys. We'll look into the trade market, but we won't really explore it. We'll look into free agency, won't really explore it. This year, they re-signed their 4 priority defensive free agents. They added 2 guys in the trade market. They didn't really get a whole lot of free agents that were new that really helped them. I think I guess their biggest free agent addition, I guess, was Chuma Edoga. They didn't have a whole lot of sign him guys, but at the very least, like they're starting to go that route. And when they re-signed Zack Martin in the old days, they'd be like, no, we need to sign these guys first. They saw how the offensive line looked in camp. They saw how the offensive line depth looked in preseason. Zack Martin, future Hall of Famer, unlike Tyron Smith, is still playing at the top of his position. And they can't afford to be without him. And what this also gives you is it gives you room for him over the next 2 years to develop your backup guys. If one guy does end up succeeding, because Zack Martin is 33 and the offensive line position can deteriorate your body a little faster than some, but it can also hold up. It's weird how that works because Jason Peters is still playing. He's 40. And so I think that it's a great move for the Cowboys. Dak Prescott's probably the happiest person. He's probably even happier than Zach, who's actually getting the money. And what that does is it adds a little bit of relief, especially on the interior. That still doesn't answer the question of who's going to be the day one starters across the line, but it does give that sort of relief that their main guy, their best guy, he'll be on the field week 1.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad they did it. I know a lot of us thought it was going to be an extension, but they did it the way it worked. He's still going to be at the same contract, but he's getting that. I think next year he'll be getting $18 million. And I know this year they already gave him his $11.8 million in March. Yep. But I'm looking. I just had it on the from Tyler Archer. He had his base salary this year $1.25 million. And that's a big steal for a guy that's still playing the top of his game. Like you're pretty much solidified on your right side. You're trying to figure out, okay, if Tyron's there, he's going to be the left tackle, and Tyler Smith's going to be your left guard. But in the future, Tyler Smith is your left tackle, and then you're trying to figure out who's going to be this next left guard.
Yeah, that's where I'm at also, because like I understand that the thought process, and since we're on the talk of offensive line, the thought process is you want your best 5.
Yeah.
But I would argue that if Tyron Smith is out there, really your best five, or is it your best five in theory? Problem is that like I can't rely on you. And sometimes the best ability is availability and his biggest
Yeah,
weakness. I don't want to crucify him for being injured. That ain't his fault.
yeah,
Injuries happen. But we also look
they
at this from
do.
a business perspective and a football perspective. And then if we keep playing these hurt guys, kind of like how the Cowboys were loyal to Sean Lee, they were loyal to Jason Witten, they were loyal to guys beyond they needed to be loyal to. Tyron Smith, another one of those guys, and I'm glad they reworked his deal to where at the end of the year he'd be a free agent because they need to move on. They really do. I feel like they should have traded him or something like that, get some value back. But at least this allows him to go out on his own, and it makes the ending a little softer.
Yeah,
But you're right. Tyler Smith was by far their best left tackle last year, and I feel like at some point this year, as much as it may suck to hear, we're going to see Tyler Smith again at left tackle, and we're going to see someone else. We're going to see a bevy of different guys play left guard before they figure it out.
yeah. And it's almost like three players you're kind of trying to think that could be that left guard. I know Idoga's out with the injury, but you got T.J. Bass who got some reps, and then Awesome
Yes,
Richards
sir.
is another guy. Like that's what you're looking at.
I like to see Austin Richards play guard. I like to see him play
Yeah,
guard
I think he can play
because he got
guard.
he got he got a lot of guard snaps in camp. I want to see him
Yeah,
get him some game reps because I thought coming out he had the ability to play guard. He's a great pass block. Run blocking was the thing.
yeah.
That was the thing where he needed to improve most on coming out of North Carolina.
But he can definitely work on that. It's his rookie year, and then you got T.J. Bass. It was kind of like the opposite. He was really good in the run game, type of guy.
Yes, exact opposite.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you this: who you think could be the backup center between Hoffman and Farniok?
Well, it seems to me like they really like Farniok playing guard. Hoffman, I thought actually did decent
Yeah, that's what
against
I
the
thought.
Jags, and Hoffman's been getting more and more first team reps. I think what Hoffman does is it allows you the flexibility because I feel like the Cowboys are going to need more interior backup guys than exterior guys, just because they're probably going to get frustrated with whoever the left guard is, assuming injuries for Tyron Smith. I'm just guessing on that,
Yeah,
and I think that if we just talk about Hoffman and Farniok is a much more explosive player. He's a much more powerful player. We see in the running game, he's a very powerful mover of bodies. Hoffman is very technical sound. I saw a couple of his plays in pass pro. And center, I told you before, center to me is the second most important position on the offensive line because you have to be able to read the defenses. You have to react from the snap and then get right back to blocking. You have to have those kind of reactions. I think he has quicker reaction times than Farniok does. Farniok, I think, is a stronger player. So the it's hard to say which one's better just because I feel like one does some things better than the other. If you're asking me where I felt more comfortable going into week one, just for perspective at this point,
yeah,
I would rather Farniok play guard and I would keep Hoffman as my backup center.
yeah. I definitely agree. And like you're saying, we need more depth on the interior offensive line. So maybe you run with that 9 or 10 deep when it comes to offensive line because you don't know
Gonna have
who
to.
because injuries happen, and then we got Tyron who's gets hurt. We don't know. We haven't seen him play a full season in
Since
a few.
before Dak. Since before
Yeah,
Dak.
yeah. And if you do the math, that's been a while. And I think I think 9 or 10 will be the best when it comes to the offensive line. But
Mm-hmm.
until our last thing is players that we need to see step up in this next game.
Mm-hmm.
And guys that I'm thinking of, I have on the list. I think I want to see more from Malik Davis, but that's not my main one. It's just a lot of us had, you see
You're on the right track. Come on now.
a
Come on.
lot of people have him on the 53 man before we got into the preseason, and he didn't really show anything last game. You
Nope.
didn't see that power that you seen when he was playing last year. He's not the biggest guy, but he at least was showing like, okay, maybe he could be that RB2 that can get you those short yardage, or maybe he does got that shiftiness. But you didn't
Mm-hmm.
see that this game. And then my next one is the offense line. We just need them to go to that next step. And I'm talking about the ones that were that are the fringe guys and guys that are who may have to step up and be a starter just in case somebody gets hurt. And then lastly, I know a guy that we haven't get to see is the two Jalen's, like Jalen Brooks and Jalen Marino Cropper. That's the ones I want to see in the next game play. Those are my three. So
Yeah, because I was really high on Jalen Moreno Cropper coming into camp because I saw his tape and I saw Jalen Brooks' tape. JMC's tape was better. He looked to me like a much better receiving prospect. Coming into training camp, he was my dark horse to make the roster. Brooks has had a better camp, and right now everyone's talking about Brooks being like a 7th-round steal kind of player you can develop into a potential starter down the line.
Yeah.
But he didn't do much of anything in the game. The reality is in the game, the receiver who stepped up the most was Dennis Houston. Everyone's talking about Jalen Tolbert, but Dennis Houston is a guy who was on the roster last year, ain't guaranteed a spot this year. I want to see more from him because I really want to see how a guy who made the roster last year, how he develops, how he looks. I want to see if he can continue this. Can he be the guy that pushes for that 6th, maybe 7th receiver spot? Because the Cowboys to me already have 5 guys that have made the team on the receiver position: Lamb, Gallup, Cooks, Turpin, and Tolbert. After that, it's 1, maybe 2 more guys, depending if they want to keep 7. Mike McCarthy typically keeps 7, but they might be forced to go light because they want to go heavy at other positions. So you're looking at at least 1, maybe 2. And right now, Dennis Houston has shown the best in game speed to be the best out of them. I want to see more from John Stevens. I want him to put pressure on that tight end room. I want him to be that guy where they say, yeah, he needs to develop as a blocker, but he's so valuable as a receiver. He's kind of, he is to me. He's the defensive equivalent of Azur Kamara. Remember him from a couple years ago? You saw his mama coming in. Yeah, Azur Kamara showed so much as a pass rusher and as a special teams guy, but not a lot as a run stopper. They're like, okay, but he's too good to let go, but we can't really play him a whole lot. So he played the entire season. He was off the active roster except for I think 2 games, and he was primarily as a gunner. But John Stevens kind of like that. I like the quarterback battle between Will Grier and Cooper Rush. They're both going to make the team because now you can keep 3 quarterbacks and it won't count against your 53.
Yeah.
And I thought Will Grier did a really good job. But Will Grier did a good job last year. I thought Will Grier outplayed Cooper Rush last year in preseason. But Cooper Rush has earned the right to be called the backup quarterback here in Dallas. I'm more than okay with that. I'm more okay with Will Grier being the 3rd guy. I love having great quarterback depth.
Yeah, I don't see anybody that would complain about that. And it just when it comes to Will Grier, he fits into this type of style of offense. He can do that scrambling ability. He's on the riskier side more than Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush is the game manager, but hey, if it gets you wins, that's all that really matters. If that gets down, because that's
Will Grier, when he was at West Virginia, came from the spread offense, and so now the Cowboys want to implement the West Coast. They call it the Tex Coast, which is just a stupid name. And it's a very modified version of the spread where they want the routes to be broken quick and they want the ball out in under 3 seconds. That's the whole concept. Is they want either quick short passes or they want quick developed routes down the field, and it helps if your offensive line is below average. Because right now I don't really know where I would qualify the Cowboys offense because I don't even know who their 5 stars are going to be. I really don't. And another guy who I thought is kind of showing something is Wanye Thomas. Wanye Thomas has been a guy people have talked about and came as some sort of just pure defensive back. He plays a little corner, plays a little safety. He made the interception on Trevor Lawrence, which is unless you're the Chargers, hard to do. He's a very accurate quarterback. He's making plays, putting pressure. It would be dependent on how they view him either as a cornerback or a safety. Because right now the Cowboys have 6 safeties. You feel great about. I feel great about 5 of their safeties. I feel like cornerback is an area of question in terms of who's those extra guys because the cornerback kind of like receiver. I feel like they're going to keep 7. I don't know who those last 2 are going to. And Wanye Thomas, I feel like after that performance is putting a little pressure on Deshaun Wright, on Kelvin Joseph, on a Miles Brooks, maybe even on a C.J. Goodwin. Maybe the Cowboys are finally saying C.J. Goodwin is a great special teams player, but we can get more out of these guys if they need to play defense, and we can definitely get enough out of them on special teams. And finally, the guy I need to see more of is Brandon Aubrey. I need to see him kick a long field goal, and I need to see him make extra points. I need that kind of confidence because one thing I had confidence in Brett Maher, I knew if the kick was beyond 50, he was going to make it. Because for some reason, the further away he gets, the more accurate he is. The closer he gets, the wider it, the larger the chance of him missing it was. Aubrey has his days in practice where he'll make 7-7. He also has his days where he'll make 4-7. He'll miss a 33-yarder, which is an extra point, and that's disturbing to me because extra points, whether we like to admit it or not, they matter. And at that point, if they keep missing extra points, I want them to go for 2 every time. So I need to see something from the USFL kicker.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the weirdest thing is like he makes the field goals, but those extra points, like you need those. Like, what if you're all you need is 1 point to win the game, and he missed that? That's what you got to think about.
Yep.
And you can't always go. You don't want to always go for 2. Like if you want to like a dependable kicker, that's what you need.
If you're Doug Peterson, you will.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I think they should bring in another kicker just so we can have competition. But I think there should be a legit type of kicker. There's a couple of guys that come to mind. But one of them is not going to be when it comes to kickoff. I don't know about what Mason Crosby could bring. I think there's another one, the Tampa Bay kicker from last year. Those are like 3 guys that come to mind. I don't know who.
I'm spacing on a name. I know Robbie Gold is a popular name. I don't know. Ryan Suckup. I don't know if Robbie Gold even wants to play anymore. I have no idea.
I wouldn't doubt it. He's been in the league for a good minute.
But you're right. They need kicking competition. They do. They need better because they prematurely ended it with Tristan Vizcaino without like seeing what he looked like in a game. Because if Brandon Aubrey is the guy, I need more reliability out of that. And this isn't the type of team that you can just try and experiment on with a kicker. Okay, the Cowboys are ready to compete right now, so I need a kicker I can rely on. And if Brandon Aubrey ain't that guy, then get me a vet who we know we can rely on for those kind of kicks. Kai Forbath's out there, Ryan Suckup's out there, Mason Crosby, who played for so many years under Mike McCarthy. Just if Aubrey ain't the guy, they need to realize that now before it costs them games.
Yeah, I think if he's still showing the same like last week, that's when you need to start bringing that kicker and seeing, okay, now we got some competition. Who's going to be that next one? It's literally. I remember I seen a post about what are the Cowboys' biggest weakness. Somebody posted like it's the kicking issue. That shouldn't be like that. Should be something like you don't even know the kicker's name because you're like, oh, kicker's nothing but it's not a big deal because we got
right.
And we haven't had that. I think Dan Bailey was the last one where we had like consistent kicker.
Dan Bailey.
Yeah, and it literally we go through one every year, and then we bring in Brett Maher. Like you're saying, Brett Maher can make those 60 to 50-yard field goals, but when it comes to them short ones, it's just like you don't know where to angle or anything. But it's been a great show. I know you got to get back to the studio and everything, and it's hot today, so I don't want to leave you in the car too long, bro.
It's all good. I got the AC on, but I love being on. If I have to keep doing the shows like this from my car outside the studio, then I'm gonna keep doing that because I love making this show. I appreciate how you have your outside shows with other guests on, and you have your high school spotlight show, and you can have your Cowboy show with me. I just love the way you've grown tacos and touchdowns, and I'm happy to be at least a little part of it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, bro. Speaking of that, I'm gonna be at the TOU football scrimmage tomorrow, so I'm gonna definitely drop some content for Instagram, and so stay on the lookout for that. I'm probably interview a couple of guys as well, so y'all definitely look out for that. I got to show love to the Division III football for sure because they don't get that love like the big D1 schools. But before I let you go, bro, is there anything that you got anything going on?
Well, I mean, I don't really want to plug an outside channel, but I do have a new show for Stadium Rant called Primetime Cowboys, which I do with Nolan Brooks. That's also once a week. We preview the Cowboys at least once to twice a week once the season starts. Be on the lookout for guests that if they can't make this show, but they're available for that show, I'll be able to bring them over there. I try and bring guests for every show because I'd like to highlight all my platforms, all my content, plus all theirs because I feel like they're good guests. And you can ask Aaron. I don't just go and get fans. I get people who know their stuff. I get great guests.
Oh, you do for sure. Oh, and shout out to Nolan. I used to write for Stadium Rant a couple years ago. He's a great guy. I know y'all definitely gonna have some great content coming soon for everybody. But this has been Tacos and Touchdowns. Y'all have a good one. Peace.